Morgan Griffith, Congressman, 9th District, Republican, part of the Freedom Caucus, voting for the Ryan Care bill, is joining us momentarily. We understand from talking to some people that the vote is now narrowing on this. Yesterday we had Congressman Chris Collins on from New York because I was in Buffalo. So if you're going to go in the district in a factory, you might as well get the guy that represents it. And Congressman Collins said they were within 6. Now, Collins' office called me today and said, hey, be sure to tell everybody we're in 3. Apparently, they got Lou Barletta from Pennsylvania, friend of the John Fredericks Show. Big win for them. They think they might get Mo Brooks. I don't know. We'll have to see. But apparently the gap closing. Either way, Collins said they're going to win or lose by 1 vote. That's his prediction. We had Vice President Pence on yesterday on this. Vice President Pence very convincing and said, hey, skeptics. I asked him, I said, what faith do we have in this? Phase 2, phase 3? And I mean, come on, we've been led down the primrose path by House leadership so many times. I mean, how can we put our trust in this? And he said his answer was 2 words, Donald Trump. It's a very persuasive answer. So this thing is going to be very close. And joining us now to try to figure it out, he's in a unique position, Morgan Griffith is. Number one, talk about somebody that tells you the truth. This is the guy right here. Number 2, he's a very respected member of the Freedom Caucus. And number 3, he's voting for the bill. So he broke with the Freedom Caucus, and he's been an advocate of it for some time. Congressman Morgan Griffith, good to have you, sir.
It's good to be with you this morning.
Okay, Congressman, you're always fun to have on. I've told you this before. Like, if I go like a week or so without having you on, that's why we like to get you on every week, because then I get the shakes. I need my Griffith fix. So tell us what's going on with this bill.
Well, I will tell you that I had dinner with Mo Brooks last night and saw him this morning already, and they don't have Mo Brooks. I'll just tell you that. I don't know what their vote count is, but it's really interesting. The Freedom Caucus is out there, and we have split, but not on the basic philosophy. They think we ought to be doing more. I agree. And it's interesting. I had a meeting with the president yesterday. He agrees. The problem is, and I'm going to disagree with the president just a little bit, he said that it was the archaic and arcane rules of the Senate. I think it's the arcane rules of the Senate. The problem with the Senate rules is not that they're archaic, it's that in the 1970s, they decided they knew more about running an establishment, a legislative body than Thomas Jefferson and George Mason, and went off on their own path. And it's causing all kinds of problems. Their rules are the problem. So during the night, yesterday evening, and I think continuing even beyond that and into this morning, they're trying to figure out, under the Senate rules, how far can they go. And the Freedom Caucus is pushing them to go as far as they possibly can without breaking what's called the Byrd Rule. And so we'll see if it works out. But I don't think they get there without some more Freedom Caucus votes. And to do that, they've got to make some more amendments.
Can they get there with these amendments? I mean, you said you had dinner with Mo Brooks last night. He's out. He's going to vote no, is what I just heard you say. They said they got Representative Steve King from Iowa. Apparently that was a big deal. They got him to go over. So they say, I guess now they're within 3. But look, it's like now they're, it was 6, now it's 3, maybe 4, but now you really get down to some people that are dug in. So you look at who said they're voting no. Tom Garrett said it's going to lose today. But what amendments could they possibly offer that would allow, 2 or 3 or 4 Freedom Caucus members to say, okay, I'm going to go with this thing?
Well, what they have been discussing and trying to figure out through the Senate rules, if it can be done, is eliminating the essential health benefit mandate, the package from the federal government says, here's what you got to have in your insurance policy. And then in order to make that work effectively, you have to take out some of the insurance regs that have been passed by the Obamacare people. And that's where the rub comes in. Can it be done? Apparently they're trying to thread that needle. to the credit of everybody, the White House has been involved, the leadership's been involved. Mark Meadows is exhausted. He's been involved. I sent him a text this morning and said, "Do we have white smoke yet?" He wrote me back, no. He thought they were close at some point in the night, but they didn't have it yet.
Smoke.
But they're still working on it. So don't count out the president and his ability to try to make the deal work. On the other side of the coin, we're dealing with some of the hardest rules, illogical rules, things that don't make sense in trying to run the legislative body. And,
right.
You know, it'd be like trying to say that the British Parliament had to get a 60% margin in order to do Brexit. Well, you know, that doesn't make any sense. It's got to be a majority. But,
right.
That's what we're faced with and confronted with. So the Freedom Caucus is right in that they want more. And, you know, unless they can figure out how to make the rules work, the leadership's right that, you know, they've pushed it about as far as they can go, and we'll have to see how the votes fall out.
All right, but Congressman, you're one of the most staunchest supporters of the Freedom Caucus and a member of it, a ranking member. So you've decided to vote in favor of this bill. Why?
Well, I think when push comes to shove, and I respect my friends in the Freedom Caucus for trying to get everything they can, but when push comes to shove, we have to repeal Obamacare. And does this get rid of every aspect of it? No. Does it get rid of a lot of it? Yes. Does it get rid of it so much that when we were having the hearing on it, and I sat on one of the committees of jurisdiction, that Sarbanes of Maryland was saying, make no mistake about it, this will destroy the Obamacare exchanges. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's the idea. And so the Democrats have been fighting us tooth and nail. We will get not a single Democrat vote. They put us through a 27-and-a-half-hour hearing in our committee with amendment after amendment after amendment, and constantly saying this was, you know, the end of the world, the sky would fall. You know, editorials have been written, the headline in the Roanoke Times, and one of the editorial pieces was, "Will Griffith to kill Mary?" When I see the Democrats fighting us that hard, and when I look at the bill and see that it's moving us in the right direction, I've got to believe it's the right thing to do. And the problem is, if we don't do this, it's a huge victory for the Democrats in the end. And I hope that we can work it out. And like I said, if the Freedom Caucus gets their amendments, the bill's even better. So I do not disparage them. But when push comes to shove, we've got to get this thing over to the Senate, and we have to continue to fight to make more changes. And that's why the president says, you know, there's three different tiers to this, three phases. We've got to move on into phase, and we already started phase 3, actually. We've got a couple of bills up this week that will reform other aspects of Obamacare. We're getting rid of McCarran-Ferguson, which gives insurance companies protection against the antitrust laws. We're going to take that away. We've got another one that lets you have small group pools that are not governed by the Obamacare regulations. So we are doing a lot of things that will strip it away completely in the end. And I think while it could be better, and that's what the Freedom Caucus is fighting for, and I respect them and love all the guys, but in the end, I made the decision that at some point you have to take as much of a victory as you can get, and this is as much as I believe we can get at this time. If they can get a little bit more between now and the vote sometime tonight, I think that's great. But I believe that we've gotten about as much as we can get through the arcane rules of the Senate.
Well, Congressman, that was really the position yesterday of your colleague from New York, Buffalo, who was on our show, Chris Collins, who said, look, reality is this is the best we're going to do, or maybe a little bit better, but he said you have to start the process to change it, and this is phase 1 of 3. And I had the vice president on yesterday, and Vice President Mike Pence, very convincing when I asked him, I said, look, you want us to basically go with you on the promise of phase 2 and phase 3. And those of us that follow this stuff, Mr. Vice President, I said, GOP establishment leadership in the House really hasn't delivered on a lot of the promises. Omnibus, I could go on. And he said, I got a 2-word answer, Donald Trump. He was very convincing yesterday. And basically he said, look, I'll give you my personal guarantee. If we get this done, we're going to work night and day to be sure that phase 2 and phase 3 are a reality, and we're going to do it the right way. and we're going to get these changes made that everybody wants. So, it was a very persuasive argument. And, it really softened my opposition to it because, I don't like the bill, but now I'm thinking like you and Collins are saying, well, if you don't pass it, this is the other thing. I just want to get your comment on this. Collins said something yesterday that really got my attention. He said, okay, so we don't pass this, it fails. And the Freedom Caucus says, well, they'll go back and write their own. He said, great. They'll get 52 votes. And then you still got Obamacare, which is going to implode anyway. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I think that the Freedom Caucus plan would get a few more votes than 52. I think you'd get on up their ways. But can it pass the House, and would it get through the arcane rules in the Senate? And I have significant doubts that a standalone plan would be able to do that. Now, if you just want to do the repeal, you could do that. But the president is absolutely convinced if you do the repeal, that you'll never get around to agreeing on a replacement because there won't be any push to get rid of something as bad as Obamacare, and that is the stick and the carrot to get a replacement plan in place. And without it, he says you never get a replacement, and then we haven't kept our promise. We've repealed it, but we haven't kept our promise to take care of those areas that we said we would take care of, like pre-existing conditions. And I think he's right, and I do think that the president is a big difference in this, and it was his assurances that brought Steve King over. I was in the room when that happened, and he is the difference between promises not kept in the past. I hope, and if he lets us down, then in a couple of years, and he comes back to us with something, then we'll know we can't rely on it. But I believe this president will attempt to get exactly what he says he's going to attempt to get for us, and it's what we promised over the last number of years, and that is a eventual complete repeal. This is step one. It's a good step. The Democrats know this is the fatal blow to Obamacare, and then they'll come on board, I think, and help us, not all of them, but a few of them will come on board and help us craft what we need to craft to go forward. But without this first step, I think we're dead in the water on a number of issues, not just Obamacare. The Democrats will say, okay, we've blocked them once, we can block them on everything.
Okay, Congressman, I want to get to this question. If the vote were at 9 a.m., would you win by one or lose?
If the vote were to be at 9 a.m., no amendments being offered that we don't already know about, the vote would lose, in my opinion.
Okay. So in order to get over the top, you need amendments, you need more dealing. The president has to basically do the art of the deal on steroids, get this done. How many are you down by? 3, 5? How many?
I think it's more than that. What people don't realize is there's a fair number of folks who are not members of the Freedom Caucus. They've got to bring the block of the Freedom Caucus folks that are holding out for these amendments. Now, the question is, can they get them through the Senate? That's the big question. And I have doubts about that, which is why the negotiations have stalled. But that being said, they've got to bring some block on board, and the only block out there is the Freedom Caucus block. But you have a lot of folks out there who are not voting for the bill for various other reasons. Some more moderate members are holding out for other assurances or other promises on issues that don't have anything to do with Obamacare directly. I've heard some of those comments. Then you've got some folks who just feel that, they just don't like the deal, and the AARP has come out against it, and so a lot of people with older populations, even though their president has assured us that he will get that fixed in the Senate, there are a lot of folks who are like, I can't vote for it as it's currently written, who don't have the same issues that the Freedom Caucus has. Now, so you've got, I think, maybe another 15 out there who are no's that have their own reasoning and their own amendments they would like to have. You've either got to bring each one of those over one at a time, or you got to bring over the 28 or so Freedom Caucus members who have not agreed to vote for it by doing their amendments or something close enough to it that they can accept it.
All right. Well, sounds like from what you're saying, if you're down by Well, Chris Collins said 6 yesterday. You said it's over 5. If you're down by 8 or 9, there's no way this thing is going to make it through today, Congressman. But look, you know what? It's not over till it's over, right? And that's why you play the game, and that's why you go down and put in your card and you hit the green button or the red button. So we'll see which it is. But based on what you just said, I would change my odds from even money to now it's an underdog. Let's get to local politics. Okay, I've got Governor Bob McDonnell coming on my show next week. He just made an endorsement of Ed Gillespie, as did the Resolution Tea Party group and 35 Hampton Roads leaders. Congressman, I believe in candor, okay? And I call it like I see it, as you know. The Gillespie campaign, I believe, looking at this, my analysis, is they're going to spend about $1.5 million to $2 million in TV ads in the final 3 weeks. That's what I would do, looking at their war chest before the primary, in order to get his name ID up higher and position himself for a big win to go against whoever the Democratic nominee is. Now he just picked up 35 leaders in Hampton Roads. He got a big Tea Party group. I don't see how either Corey Stewart or Frank Wagner right now is going to win this race. I think you're getting to where it's looking like almost an inevitable. Am I wrong?
I think you're right. And, that's, look, we have some good candidates, but
yes,
the only candidate who has broad support statewide. And neither of the other two candidates appears to be heavily dominant in the populated areas. So you might be able to say you don't need the 9th district because, it's a big territory and we don't have as many votes as Northern Virginia, where you have 3 congressional districts piled in there together. But that would mean that Corey Stewart would have to be dominating in Northern Virginia. He's not. Frank Wagner would have to be dominating in the Hampton Roads area, and he's not dominating. He may win, but he's not dominating. And unless the other two candidates can dominate a high population area, they can't win the race.
You look at the numbers right now. The latest poll that came out has Gillespie at about 25%, I think, and it had Wagner and Corey Stewart, Senator Frank Wagner, Chairman Corey Stewart, somewhere below 10%. And so under normal circumstances, you could say, okay, 60% of people undecided. Somebody can catch fire. There's still a shot. But then when you look at the money, I just look at cash on hand and I say to myself, well, if I'm running the campaign, I'm going to drop $2 million in TV ads in the final 3 weeks. Nobody else can match it. I'm going to move the needle. It's going to be all positive. Maybe I can get 45%, position myself against whoever the Democratic nominee is. Nobody's going to be able to match that, Morgan. And so you put that $2 million in the mix in the final 3 weeks. I think right now Ed Gillespie is a 2-5 favorite. Something dramatic is going to have to happen for him not to be the nominee. So we'll see how it plays out. Bob McDonnell getting back in the fray. He's on my show next week and rumored as a possible candidate for U.S. Senate 2018. Stranger things have happened, Morgan, right?
Well,
Stranger
that's
things.
True, and Bob is a good fella. He had a little lapse of judgment there while he was governor because he was paying attention more to the state issues than what was going on around him, and he should have been paying attention to both. But it wasn't criminal, and the Democrats tried to paint him as some kind of a monster, and he's not. He's a great guy. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, only got 2 more minutes, and I know you've got a lot to do today. Final question. Chairman Nunes yesterday apparently getting information, chairman of the Intel Committee, getting information on surveillance. Didn't go to Adam Schiff with it. His ranking member, vice chairman on the Intel Committee, went to the White House. Now the Democrats all upset, saying that he's tarnished the whole investigation. What's Morgan's take on this whole thing?
Well, he probably should have given the information to the Democrats, 30 seconds before he did his little press announcement. But in reality, this is pretty interesting stuff because it may indicate that the president was right. He just had his timing off. That somebody was listening in on their calls, and whether it was during the campaign or during the transition, that's it's bad either way. And you would think that the Democrats, who are generally out there saying they're going to, keep an eye on big government from spying on us, would be outraged and want to get to the bottom of it. Instead, they'll do anything to circle the wagons and protect the former President Obama and his team, because I don't think personally that Obama would have given the order. But, my goodness, the fact that there's even the hint of suspicion that U.S. government agencies were listening in on transition calls, not a good thing. And we've got to be very concerned about that here in Washington. I suggest everybody go out and read George Orwell's 1984. We don't need Big Brother keeping an eye on us.
All right, that's it. We're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Morgan Griffith for being with us. Congressman, it's always an honor to have you on. And we'll be following this vote, Congressman, very closely. And you want more information, you can go to griffith.house.gov, griffith.house.gov. Just so everybody knows, Morgan Griffith is a Republican congressman, Virginia, 9th District. That's Southwest Virginia. And he's also a member of the Freedom Caucus, and he is voting in favor of the American Health Care Act.